So the Dark Angels are special. And what I mean by that is they were the first Space Marine Legion created by the Emperor of Mankind. So being the first chapter, it seems like the logical way to start this series on the Space Marine chapters. So to understand the Dark Angels today, we need to look at what happened in the past. So their Primarch is Lionel Johnson. And for most of this video, he may just be referred to as the Lion, just for your understanding. So the Lion essentially was jetted off in a gestation pod. It's a long story. Honestly, just take it as it sounds, please. And he landed on a feudal death world. This world was called Caliban. So Caliban is a planet that was covered in forests, and these forests were inhabited by these monstrous creatures, and these had been mutated by chaos. So where Caliban's placement is, essentially there's a lot of chaos energy knocking about, because the Eye of Terror is not too far away. The human population of this planet, they were made to live in fortresses essentially and castles. So now you get what I mean when I say feudal world. And being a feudal planet, of course they had nobility and so on, all that thing you'd expect from the feudal ages. And the Lion, however, he did not have this luxury, because he landed in a completely remote and isolated part of Caliban. So realistically, this is where the Lion's story should end, but somehow he survived, and he survived for a hell of a long time. So how did the Lion survive? Well, he had to survive using his skill and prowess to not be absolutely obliterated by one of these chaos mutated monstrosities. And obviously being not affected by the chaos energies himself, it's one of the reasons why the Lion will never become a traitor. And after quite a while, he did eventually meet some other humans. And this was part of a group called the Order. So the Order, they had a reputation for fearlessness and complete honesty. All fits in with the feudal theme. So being in the Order is where he eventually got his name, Lionel Johnson, which translates to the Lion, the Son of the Forest. And this will become more apparent when we learn about forest walking later on in the video. So eventually, with the Emperor waging his great crusade, the Lion did eventually get reunited with his father on Caliban. So this Caliban then became the home of the First Legion once they were put under the control of the Lion by the Emperor. So the Dark Angels themselves, they were initially referred to as the Angels of Death before becoming the Dark Angels. Yep, it sounds as emo as it is. But the fun point of this legion is that at one point they were under control of the Emperor. And this is likely why you see all the wicked cool toys that they have that you don't get in the other Space Marine chapters. And obviously coming from a feudal world now, or when they came from a feudal world of Caliban, hence you'll see things like a lot of cloaks. It makes sense. It fits in with the lore. It fits in what feudalism is. And it kind of, as I said, makes sense. So now we have a little bit of a feel of the background of the Primarch. Let's talk about more of the Dark Angels themselves. So if you are a person who likes to keep shameful secrets to yourself, then the Dark Angels, they might be for you. Because this is a big part of them. Also known as the treachery. So during the Horus heresy and all that crap that was going on, the Lion was away fighting for humanity. He was then told of the goings on around Terra, and he hurried back. You know, give a helping hand and all that. But the Lion, he made it back too late. And what happened obviously happened. The Imperium won. However, the Imperium itself was no longer in a good shape. And upon going back to Caliban is where some things really kick off for the Lion. So there's this dude called Luther. And he was the one who led the Lion to mankind in the Order, who took him in essentially. But Luther was a bit of a jealous belle, and when the Lion was away getting all the glory and fighting and doing all these cool stuff for the Emperor, he was getting so jealous, and it allowed himself to become seduced by chaos. And with this, he would eventually lead the Fallen, who were a group of Space Marines with 0 willpower, and they went to follow Luthor and Chaos. You see, Luthor himself, he wasn't a Space Marine in the same respect as other Space Marines. He was too old to become a full and true Astartes, although he did get some genetic and biochemical enhancements, and of course, he got the fun toys of the Imperium. So with Space Marines, anyone who has pretty much gone past puberty into their 20s, they won't get the full effects of anything with the gene seed, hence they try and do it when you're really, really young. All in all, this led to a complete showdown to those loyal to the Lion and those who became loyal to Luthor, and this resulted in the complete destruction of Caliban, and as well as this, it led to the disappearance of the Lion and some of Luthor's allies, and these escaped, and we'll call these now the Fallen Angels, or the Fallen for short. Luthor himself was captured, and he was put into one of the deepest dungeons in the Rock being a mobile fortress from Caliban, and yes, it is a giant rock. However, the Dark Angels would then spend a lot of their time in the years gone by hunting these Fallen, trying to redeem themselves of this treachery. And with the Fallen, I just want to point out also that not everyone fell to Chaos in exactly the same way. Some went full Chaos Space Marine mode. Some actually became disgusted in what they've done and essentially committed treason against the Lion and the Emperor and the Imperium of Man. And some of these Fallen now roam the galaxy as mercenary pirates and all that sort of jazz. So after the Great Rift, Luthor was freed. And he was freed essentially, there was a massive attack on the Rock by some demons, and that allowed Luthor to escape. But all in all, either way, this whole thing is kept secret by the Dark Angels, in which they are still looking to atone for. Now I want to give a spoiler alert for the latest Lion book. I'm going to have some bits of that in this now, and if you haven't read it yet and you don't want to get spoiled, now's a good point to subscribe and leave. However, if you're interested, just carry on. So what is happening now? Well, the Lion has returned. He has woken up after a millennia of sleeping. And with this, he has aged a huge amount. So he is woken up in what we call Mirror Caliban, with literally no memory. And with that, all he encountered was the old king on the river, and he was approached by a watcher in the dark. The Lion would ask himself where he was. The only response he would get is home. You need to remember, so what happened with the Lion, he was literally fighting Luthor and was wounded and albeit spared by Luthor at this point, and was taken to the Rock and put into a coma by the Watchers in the dark. They are that powerful, they can keep him in a coma for so long, until which point the Lion was needed again. So moving on, the Lion eventually, down the line, had an encounter with the fallen angel Zabriel, and this is where the Lion's memories would return to him. The Lion would then learn how to freely enter Mirror Caliban so he can move across realms to reach other destinations. So by walking a couple of 100 yards, he could be somewhere completely different. If he goes hours down the road, he can be in another part of the galaxy. So it's pretty cool in that respect. And this is what we call the Forest Walk. So he sort of like creates his own little mirror entity, and it allows him to have a little bit of safe space, also transverse, which is pretty cool in itself. So in short terms now, the Lion ends up in a location with some Fallen. Yep, those guys. However, these Fallen are also still loyal to the Lion. I know it sounds completely mental. And the Lion forms a new warband of the Fallen, now called the Risen. I know what you're thinking, GW. Very original. The Lion then met up with some Blood Angels that had come to see if it was true the rumours about the Lion returning were true. And this leads to the Lion then gathering with Dante, and he finds out that his brother Rabute still lives. And then, with this in mind, It all then kicks off, and it leads to a battle between the Lion and Angron, where the Lion then banishes Angron into the warp. There'll be more on this in a different video because it's quite a cool little story and it's worth dedicating a bit of extra time to. So I hope you enjoyed this little overview on the First Legion. Naturally, we would then move on to the Second Legion, but you know, records all gone for them. So the next video on this series, we'll move on to the Third Legion next, Emperor's Children. I will see you next time.